Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, greatest value in gaming, Xbox Game Pass. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and before we get into what we are talking about in today, in the Taste Profile series, part 2, I'd like to talk about who's cool.
Well, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you for the floor. First of all, I want to give special highlight to a guy from Ohio and Rob. They're more cool than other people. I feel like that anyway. But then there are, of course, the perennial cool folks, Passion Killer 711, Destrucity KTL, DG, and on the tip of your tongue. Thank you for being cool. You too can become cool by giving me $1 on the Patreon. You get episodes of the regular Journey of Wrestling series a week early. You get the entire ECW limited series playlist. And, my thanks.
Nice. So we went over this at the beginning of the last episode of this particular series. But just to catch you up very briefly, in 2018, we responded to an internet meme that was on what is formerly known as Twitter, about 5 properties that if you wanted to introduce someone to what you like or to you as a person, what would you give them as recommendations? We did 3 episodes, 1 on movies, 1 on TV, and 1 on video games. We are now doing 3 episodes again to check in 6 years later.
And it is our 10th year anniversary of doing this podcast, so we're doing a lot of throwback stuff for that reason.
The format we went through last time was we would go over what we selected for someone last time in 2018, what their actual picks were, and then our picks for them this year, and then they would go over their picks for this year, and then we reverse.
I don't think that's true. Don't care though.
Is that not what we did?
I think we did the picks, and then the modern picks, and then the truth, and then the modern truth.
Okay, sure, let's do that. I believe I said last episode we would not do this the same way twice.
And I said last episode we weren't going to record these back to back, and yet here we are. It has been roughly 10 minutes more than the time it took for the last episode to get recorded, and we already don't know what happened.
Yeah, look, we just yap. You guys listen, and we appreciate it so much.
We do. Speaking of which, you know what else we appreciate? When you tickle that algorithm, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Most of our viewers are not subscribed. If you want to hear more about us, learn about our lives, what we're into, and hear us talk about nerd culture stuff, you could do that easier by hitting subscribe.
So last time, you started out for me, I believe?
Yeah.
Why don't we reverse that?
You're going to reverse it? Okay. So let me highlight these for you, a little easier to read on the old spreadsheet here.
First up is what I picked for White back in 2018. First up was Dark Souls 3, because, I believe I said at the time, there's like a fundamental philosophical thing in Dark Souls 3 that is a part of White's personality. If you want to hear more detail on our thoughts back then, we actually still have those podcasts up. I don't recommend you ever listen to our old content, but you can if you want.
Those ones are actually pretty good.
Yeah, I liked them.
Yeah, we re-listened to them recently.
Final Fantasy VI, because Final Fantasy VI is nerd firmament for White Raven. It is
not even nerd firmament, it's storytelling firmament.
It is just so fundamental to the things he likes in characters, story, atmosphere. It is like I don't believe I had it on my list this time. I've genuinely forgotten what I put, but that's because I wanted to pick different stuff. Dropsy, which is a game I have not played, but know he loves, about a very friendly clown who just wants to hug people. Mass Effect 3, because it was controversial-ish at the time to like that game and the ending, and we both did. And then WWE 2K18, because he likes his favorite game genuinely is Character Creator, and that has a whole part of the game that is that.
Yes.
And then next, what are we doing next?
Your modern predictions.
My modern predictions for White for back in the day.
or for now.
Or yeah, for excuse me, for this year.
You guys are here because of the professionalism, right?
Yeah. We're Watch Dogs 2, because of all of the games that I've heard White talk about wanting to play again with fresh eyes, be able to experience fresh again. He's mentioned that one the most.
It's really the only one that I'd want to play again for the first time.
It is probably the best Grand Theft Auto game, so it deserves a spot. Just for skill, if nothing else. Minecraft, because the dude plays a lot of it, and it's a great chill-out game. And the fundamentally satisfying way stuff fits together in that game will help you understand what he likes out of, like, a mechanical experience. Another Crab's Treasure, because of the games he's played recently, it's the one he has crowed the most about liking.
Game's not over, but it stands to be my game of the year. Yeah. Game's not over. Year's not over, excuse me.
Shadow of the Erd Tree. Not Elden Ring. Specifically the Shadow of the Erd Tree expansion to Elden Ring, because it gave him so much more of what he loved from Dark Souls 3 and from FromSoft games. And I didn't want to just pick Dark Souls 3 again, so I decided to do that for funny reasons you'll see later. And then The Messenger, which I think is probably the game that I was surest about, because it's a game I haven't played, but it's a game that he got into in terms of aesthetics and soundtrack, and it's a game that actually captured his emotional attention, and that's more rare.
I have a lot to talk about with that. I'm going to try not to go too long-winded about it, but let's go to my old picks first.
Yeah, your old truth.
I said Dark Souls 1 to your Dark Souls 3. The short version is, I feel like there are certain NPCs and certain mindsets that are expressed in Dark Souls 1 that were more important to me at the time. And they are still important to me today, but the mechanics don't hold up as much, so it's not on my list.
I believe at the time I picked 3 over 1 because 3 is a mechanically better game,
Yes.
but 1 it has that philosophical core much clearer.
Final Fantasy VI, because that was easy. I also had Dropsy on there because it was something that, again, philosophically, it's about just trying to be a good person in the face of challenge. Trying to live your truth, whatever that truth is, in the face of difficulty and opposition. And I like clowns. Mega Man 3 I had instead of Mass Effect 3 because I do have a soft spot for platformers, and I love Mega Man as a franchise. And Fallout 4 was my final choice. I like Skyrim-like games. In theory, I like it when they're made well, and I think Fallout 4 is a really well-made Skyrim-like game. Too bad there hasn't been one since. It's a shame there has not been one since. We never did do that podcast. Probably won't, but anyway.
It's not the vibe we like to present here.
No, it's not really. We already did the Baldur's Gate one. A game we loved that we tore apart. Speaking of games we love, I will get this over with first because it's the one I want to talk the most about. The Messenger. You were absolutely right. That was a good choice. Very observant. I am honored that you noticed. I said in the last podcast that a lot of where I find my place to belong is in Americana. And ironically, a lot of the things I consider Americana are Japanese, but, through the American lens. And there's this fine line I walk between indulging in nostalgia and appreciating what was emblematic of an era. I watch a lot of old commercials, especially from the 90s and the 80s. And I like them more than modern commercials. We're starting to come back to it, but you had a lot more jingles. You had a lot more world music, and I just found that really uplifting and upbeat. And, is it because I experienced it when I was in my youth? Probably. I'm not some sort of infallible machine of objectivity, but I try to explore things through a new lens. And I think The Messenger is the embodiment of that. It is, in every way, a Ninja Gaiden style NES platformer. It's got the schmovement. You love the schmovement.
I do love me some schmovement.
It's 2D Warframe. It's challenging without being obtuse, And yeah, that soundtrack's amazing. Not much on story there, but like, if I'm gonna put a platformer on my list, Mega Man is a dying franchise, if not dead, and we just don't know it yet, unless you really like Brawlhalla. And I think The Messenger does a lot of what Mega Man did better. I wish I could say the same for their follow-up game. I didn't care for that. But without going into spoilers for the big thing that happens in The Messenger, there's a big thing that happens in The Messenger. And I haven't had a holy shit moment in a game that strong in a long time. And that it wasn't a narrative thing, that it was like a gameplay, game feel presentation thing, that's so unique. So yeah, I think it's a phenomenal game. And I definitely had to make my list. I only played through it once. I think I got 100% completion, close to it anyway. I didn't get all the achievements. Dark Souls 3 is on my list this time. I've played it a lot more since then. I think it still embodies a lot of those ideals that Dark Souls 1 had, but also I don't hold them as close to my chest. I do like FromSoft gameplay, and if you're trying to get a read on what I like in gaming, that's got to be on there.
Basically, yeah. It's because it's such a different It's such a different meal than anything else.
I wouldn't put a fighting game on this list because I don't play enough competitive fighting games. Even though I love them, even though I do violent profiles, that's one of my favorite genres, but I don't think you could play any fighting game and get me. And Dark Souls, however, keeps those fighting game mechanics and expresses them in a somber RPG that carries a lot over of what you said about Final Fantasy VI. A lot of the aesthetic, a lot of the creative choices, a lot of the leaving storytelling up to interpretation and exploration, which I find really important. Moving to Final Fantasy, 6 isn't on my list.
Which baffles me, just so we're clear.
So, and the reason for that is, it's too close to the sun. I don't think somebody else could play that game and understand what I understand. It's 2024. If you want to get me by playing a video game, if you want to get what I enjoy about the RPG genre, or you want to get what I like about the storytelling, you need to see something that is closer to what we accept in 2024 than Final Fantasy VI. You had to have played Final Fantasy VI in the late 90s.
So, Final Fantasy VI and a time machine.
Yeah. So instead I have Final Fantasy IX on there. Mechanically, it is incredibly similar to Final Fantasy VI. It's that turn-based battle. I think it explores and expands on a lot of those ideas. It embodies a lot of the same tropes in its characters and storytelling. Some of them I think done better. It's a PlayStation game with 4 discs. It has more time to get into the characters. I do identify a lot with Zidane, or Zidane, however you want to pronounce it is valid. Zelda. And there are other characters within that. Kuja, I find, is an amazing, tragic villain. There's so many characters in that story that I really love, and so many storytelling things. I almost picked Persona 5, but
I was a little surprised it wasn't on there, but I wasn't comfortable making it a guess.
It's so anime that it would give you the wrong idea.
That's why, yes.
Yep. I really liked Persona 5, but they do spend a good, 5 to 10 hours in the middle going on a beach episode, and that's not me.
No.
That's not who I am. Moving along, Stardew Valley, comparable to Minecraft. This was the Minecraft, Stardew Valley, what's the other one?
Terraria?
No, God, I hate Terraria. Buildy placey thing. I feel like I've been playing one lately, and it's not coming to me.
Supermarket Simulator?
No, although valid. I like creating. This is my favorite genre of game is character creation.
Yep.
Minecraft fits that niche really well. I think Stardew Valley works a little bit better because it has that working on something flow state vibe.
Yeah.
It has the one more turn vibe a little more than Minecraft does. And most importantly, you can date people in it.
Yeah, that's important. Dude.
Yeah. I do like that. I like a good a romance blossoming. I like that in storytelling. I like having options. Minecraft doesn't have a story unless you count Minecraft story mode, and no one does.
Nor should they.
But Minecraft is a valid choice. Watch Dogs 2 also valid. Absolutely, I would have Men in Black mind wipe specifically about my experiences with Watch Dogs 2, so I could play Watch Dogs 2 again. But I don't really like that genre of game in general.
Well, no, this is the best one.
Yeah, it is the best one, absolutely. Gaming was hard. I had to do so much darling killing there because it's like, I would recommend these games to people because I love them. I would recommend these games to people because I think they would love them. And you know, to show you what I like about a genre of gaming, but I had to like cheat, you know? Stardew Valley's on there to represent like 4 different kinds of games that I love. Final Fantasy IX is on there instead of 6, which would have made more sense, or Persona, which is a better game, because it's like...
It gives you a clearer idea.
It's the best of all worlds.
Well, that's the point of the list. It isn't your favorite stuff.
Right.
It's what do you recommend to foster understanding.
Dropsy was a game made by a guy named Jay Tholen and some other people. Maybe it's Tolan, I don't know. I've only ever read it. His follow-up was Hypnospace Outlaw. Man, you want to talk about nostalgia and like just the way things were in a different time? I was there for Web 1.0. I know there were plenty of people there for Web not that, but this is a world that you can't visit anymore. And this is a game about visiting that world. Visiting GeoCities-style web pages. I used Angel Fire more often, but it is what it is. Getting the weirdest viruses, conspiracy theories. It's about the dangers of over-censorship and, you know, Big Brother kind of mindsets. It's got a really weird ending that I think is a little ham-fisted. But everything else about the game, they come up with new music genres. You get to live, you know, vicariously through people having arguments online and little old ladies running a web page just because they want to, and like...
It is a great exploration. I haven't played it, but from what he's told me, it's a great exploration of a very liminal time.
Yes, liminal. It's that 3 a.m. I have found this weird website dedicated to the cat from Chrono Trigger. MIDIs are playing in the background. I have no power over this. There are dancing GIFs everywhere.
And that time didn't exist for very long, all things considered. So it's a very specific kind of vibe. One that I honestly... I've never played this game. I have no intention to. I don't think it would hit. Just because I don't have that connection. Yeah,
well, and that's kind of the thing, is like, I can tell you... it's the Final Fantasy VI thing. You can't go back and play it.
Yeah, that's exactly the parallel I was drawing. I don't have a time machine, so I can't make that connection.
Yeah, you can't go back to the time when the internet was that, experience it the way I experienced it, at the age I experienced it at, which I feel is critical to appreciating it on the same level, and then come back and go, oh yeah, this is a thing you can't have anymore.
Yeah, no.
Like when they re-released Crystal Pepsi.
It's not the same.
No, but like, if you had it back then and you drink it now, oh yeah, this is Crystal Pepsi. You can't get this anymore. It's the same sort of vibe. That's the one that's there more for flavor than gameplay. It's a little adventure mystery puzzle game. I do kind of like those, but like that's not as critical. So, hey, we ate up plenty of time that time. We won't have any overhang, I don't think. For you, back in day,
yes,
I predicted, and I feel like this is an awkward list. I feel like I was wrong on a lot of things, even though they weren't necessarily wrong. Some mistakes I made twice. Civilization, just as a franchise. Batman Arkham City, because you're a Batman guy, and you like those kinds of games, the Assassin's Creed likes. Rise of the Tomb Raider, you were really hot into it at the time.
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a minute. Path of Exile satisfies things in you the way Stardew Valley does in me. And Skyrim, your Fallout 4.
Absolutely.
This year, in the present, I chose Satisfactory. This is the replacement for Path of Exile.
Yeah, then that absolutely makes sense. To be clear, yes, absolutely, there is a part of my soul which wants to micromanage.
It was No Man's Sky, because that also involved movement flight. but then Satisfactory lasted longer.
Its micromanagement is better.
Well, and they had a big 1.0 release. Have you played it since then?
No, and I'm gonna.
Okay. Red Dead Redemption 2. Cyberpunk 2077, your new Skyrim. Rise of the Tomb Raider I left on there because I still feel like that's an important connection for you. I feel it's an important game genre, and I don't think anything has replaced its style.
Rise of the Tomb Raider, spoilers, is not on my list, but it was.
The only thing that's close is the first Horizon game, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Rise of the Tomb Raider. All right, so Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It's unfair to put 3 games on the list, and that's the reason that keeps this game off the list. Because those 3 games together represent an incredibly compelling and complete narrative.
Sure.
That I think is fucking astounding and slept on by so many people. I love Lara Croft's story in those 3 games, taken as a whole, so much. But it feels unfair to just to squish them all together, and as an individual game, none of them hold up to the other games on my list.
And I think that's valid. I also had Elden Ring because you've played Elden Ring like 9 times in the time it's taken me to play it 1.5 times.
Yes.
I didn't mention why I didn't pick Shadow of the Erdtree. I do need to get to that really quick before we go into your stuff. I don't want to have to play a whole ass game in order to play a game.
Yep, that makes sense.
A whole longer game that I like less.
Not the whole one.
Half a longer game that I like less.
That's
and
fair.
if I want to do it on a new game, I do have to play the whole game first.
Not if you know what you're doing.
That's not how I play the game. Yeah, we did a podcast, so y'all can go listen to that one. But so what are your actual choices for this year?
So back in day,
Back in day first.
I picked Soul Calibur, just whichever one the most recent one was, I believe 4.
Yep.
Dragon Age Inquisition, because I love those types of games. And it's been 84 years.
Only 10, as long as we've been doing a podcast.
Whew. Fallout New Vegas, because it's my favorite Fallout game. And before there's many hours of content about this. Do not come for me, Grognards. I played the originals. Fallout New Vegas is better. Get over it.
Fallout 2 was on my list for you for a little while, but I ended up
Mass Effect 1, because it is the swim forever. It is the game that I forgot to eat playing. And Skyrim, because if you track what is my favorite game by playtime, at the time I made that list, Skyrim beat everybody else by a country mile. Now, my current list.
to the modern era, yes.
The modern era. Watch Dogs 2, because it's the best Grand Theft Auto game. I loved Grand Theft Auto games as a kid. I fell out of love with them because they got too much. They became too into themselves. Watch Dogs 2 is the best Grand Theft Auto game. Fight me. I'll win.
I even like the multiplayer parts.
Red Dead Redemption 2, which again, there's so many hours of content about how much I love that game on this channel.
The best way to find them is to find our favorite character podcasts where you talk at length about the importance of Arthur Morgan and his place in a story.
Right.
And I think that's the best way to find those. We don't have just like a Red Dead Redemption 2 podcast.
The gameplay itself is pretty fun, but it's very much the story for me for that game. Be at peace, Jacob. I understand. But Cyberpunk 2077, you're absolutely right about both those. Cyberpunk 2077 I wouldn't qualify it as my new Skyrim. I get why you say that, because it is a game that I'm very likely to load up and just sort of wander around in.
Well, also, they're mechanically similar.
Yes, they're similar-ish.
Yeah, I think I've made the observation, because I didn't like 2077 as much as you. I haven't finished it yet to that point. Because I feel like Skyrim is a Skyrim and Cyberpunk is a boomer shooter with heavy RPG elements and a really detailed, in-depth story.
Yeah, and I like both the boomer shootery parts of Cyberpunk, although, to be fair, it is much more of that post the big patch.
Yeah.
It was much less of that before that. But I do like that. I love the story. I think it's very cool. I think it's very neat. I like that I accidentally got the best ending the first time I played it. Just following the story, because I didn't look up any spoilers. I just followed the story along how I would make decisions, and I accidentally got the best ending. And I think it's a very emotionally complete story, even if it's not, again, much like Edge Runners from our last episode, not a happy one. And then I put 2 on my list, which are there for the same reasons, but I felt they were both important to be on there. Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. They're both on there, even though they kind of occupy the same space, because Dark Souls 3, if you go by playtime, is still absolutely my favorite game. Because
it's harder to see playtime on the Xbox than it is on PC, where you played Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No, I have the game time of all of my games.
Okay.
I have beaten Dark Souls 3 more than Elden Ring, and I've played it longer. But
give it time.
Yeah, give it time. That's why Elden Ring's on there, because Elden Ring he's the successor. This is the prince who will take out the old king. Elden Ring will beat Dark Souls 3. Give it time. I feel it is fundamentally an improvement on the genre. White does not like Elden Ring nearly as much as the Souls games. That's perfectly valid. For me, it is an absolute improvement. And I think it will absolutely surpass... Actually, if my math is right, by the time I finish my current playthrough, it will probably surpass Dark Souls 3.
So, okay, let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say this podcast got done 2 months from now. You've finished your Elden Ring playthrough. The time has eclipsed Dark Souls 3, thus removing its strongest reason to be on the list next to Elden Ring. What do you replace it with?
I'm not sure. I think I'm waiting for that next big thing.
Yeah, same. I think this would be an interesting podcast to do again in the future, this entire series. Maybe once every 5 years or so, as we did.
Because right now I'm feeling World of Warcraft. It's fun, but I don't give a shit about World of Warcraft's story, and I never will.
Look, we've got Dragon Age Veilguard coming out soon, but is it going to hit?
Yeah. A lack of any story to give a shit about is one of the things that keeps Satisfactory in games like it, games that are just about my hindbrain's need to micromanage. It's what keeps them off the list.
Sure.
Because Dark Souls and Elden Ring don't have big cutscenes or whatever. It's not Final Fantasy 13 where it's a movie and then there's some game there. But they have a story.
Is there some game there, though?
And I said some, and it's very compelling. So they get to be on the list.
I get that. I think a lot of gaming, if I asked someone what's your favorite game and they said Pac-Man, I wouldn't be like, invalid, there's no story to Pac-Man.
Oh, absolutely. Again, this is all personal.
Sure.
But if you want to know what I like in a game, if you want to be introduced to me as a person, what drives me, what makes me seek things out, you gotta have the story. It doesn't have to be a big story. Again, Elden Ring is done mostly through item descriptions and atmosphere, but it has to be there.
So perhaps this is comparative to a statement we made in the last podcast about TV shows, why we don't really regard YouTube in the same way. Would you say that Satisfactory and its ilk over the years?
They're much closer to a YouTube.
I see.
It is not something that I have to emotionally give a shit about. I don't care about what happens to the Satisfactory guy at the end of the day. I care a lot about Arthur Morgan emotionally.
What if he gets a promotion?
Well, good for him. I'm happy for him.
Okay.
But
what if his wife leaves him because you fucked up?
That would be startling. What about you? If you had to replace one game on this list, what would you replace it with?
I think the strongest one to replace is Hypnospace Outlaw, because it's less there for gameplay. I do like adventure games, but I played this during a period in my life where there were so much. I guess the thing to substitute, let's flip it around, where there's not a whole lot of gameplay, Night in the Woods. You want to talk about important stories, something that hits really close to home. I care a lot about mental health. I struggle with a lot of stuff myself, and I think a lot of us struggle invisibly. It's got that, again, referencing the last podcast, the Roseanne style of I grew up in a small town where it was autumn a lot. Energy. I didn't have a lot of money growing up. We were lucky a lot. And then there's an Eldritch Horror. That's nice.
Always nice to have one of those.
Animal Crossing was the other game that I almost had on there instead of Stardew Valley.
That is a good... I think, honestly, that would probably be a better shout.
You can't date the animals.
That's fair.
That was the deal breaker in the end of the day.
And that's absolutely fair.
Minecraft, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing.
That just does not ever occur to me.
No, why would it? I think Night in the Woods. Night in the Woods is something I recommend to people who are looking for a moving narrative, or to people who I think that it would resonate with. Tragedy what has happened around that game outside of the game, but beautiful in the way that we literally will never have anything else like it again.